In this episode, we reviewed 5 Miles to Midnight, which was released in 1962. This was directed by Anatole Litvak. It was written by Peter Viertel and Hugh Wheeler from an idea by Andre Versini, and it stars Sophia Loren and Anthony Perkins. Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube video podcast exploring storytelling on film, as well as interviews with industry professionals who work in film, television, theater, among other areas of the arts. I want to welcome back to the show Janae Rachel Ballot, who is a writer, director, and producer. Her credits include the web series Managed, as well as the short film Contract Player. She wrote a film that's in development about Anthony Perkins, one of the stars of this film today, called Don't Fence Me In. Janae, welcome back. You're always welcome, of course.
It took the flu to get me here. So, yeah, you have to touch on that. I fought and fought my own body in order to get here today. I was not going to cave. I fought a virus for you. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Postpone it. So, this is such a good movie that I even when you're sick, you got to talk about it, I feel.
And why is that?
I don't know. It's the first thing that came into my mind.
Because it's a sick movie. That's,
yeah, exactly.
You know, my lovely voice.
So you had mentioned before we started, you've seen this several times.
I have. This was my favorite when I was researching for the biopic for Anthony Perkins. This one was absolutely my favorite. I mean, there's Fear Strikes Out, there's Goodbye Again. I love Goodbye Again. As you know, I cried. And
good.
Like 5 Miles to Midnight was the one to watch when you wanted like a real psychological thriller, and one that's completely different. So yeah, I watched this like just for enjoyment's sake when I was researching. I know the movie like the back of my hand. So when we went around and talked about it, see, it's still there, the flu, but it wants to bring me down so I don't do this today. But when I literally watched it and I went, okay, yeah, Robert's going to ask me that question. What's the difference? What's the difference from then and now? And
the $1 million question.
Yeah, I got my immunity boost shot right here, and I got my tea and my blanket. I'm ready. I'm absolutely ready to dissect this thing.
So what is the answer to that question?
I have no idea. I have no clue. But no, it's, I think everybody had some sort of crush on Anthony Perkins at some point in time, as if he's like that, popular. But anybody who's seen his movies, they had a little bit of a crush or thought he was attractive. When I was a 14-year-old girl, 15-year-old girl watching these movies, getting exposed to his filmography, I mainly just thought he was a cute drunk. And that's perfect because I attract just the best people in the world, obviously, based off that. But this time around, I mean, it really is about a woman who's slowly losing her mind. And so surface level back then, today, thank God I grew some brains. Today, I think he's more psycho in this than in Psycho itself.
Psycho. Yeah, he's terrifying in this. I mean, right from the very start. And for people who perhaps haven't seen it, I'll just read a very, very short plot that I found here. It's a woman played by Sophia Loren tries to free herself from her husband by helping him fake his own death, which, you know, I mean, that's really the surface of what's going on here. But as I was watching it, I mean, right away, it's so Hitchcockian, and the screenwriter wrote Saboteur by Hitchcock. So I'm like, okay, you could see the influence. That's because there's a couple of screenwriters, but that was Peter Viertel. He wrote Saboteur, and right away, it's just a shot of a man, and we only see his legs walking in the streets of Paris. And that is the exact way that Strangers on a Train by Hitchcock opens. And there's something creepy and mysterious about it. It's like, okay, why are we not seeing this man? Who is this man? And then we go down to this club. Again, we're still just waist down. We see Sophia Loren having this good time partying. And then when she
yeah, no, it's like she's twisting, and it's Sophia Loren too. It's like you got the luscious lips and you got the luscious hips. So
exactly. And she's having a great time, and it's the only time in the film you really see her have a great time, because as soon as she sees him, the look of horror comes across her face. And as they leave and they're talking, when he suddenly just slaps her, it's shocking. It's like, oh, okay, we're going down a dark road. But what I thought was unique about the film is that I felt even though it's a thriller, it has horror elements, it has surrealist elements. I felt it was really about domestic abuse in a lot of ways. Even though the plot is so outrageous and, again, surrealistic, but you know, obviously I don't know the ins and outs of what domestic abuse is like, but I imagine one feels terrified, as Sophia Loren feels of this man.
I mean,
suffocated, desperate to get out, angry, can turn to violence against the other person, scared, we
always go back
secrets that that man that she becomes attracted to, she's terrified that he'll find out about it. There, even though it's mixed up in this crime thriller where, again, like it has a tongue-in-cheek quality, like a Hitchcock film, where he took out flight insurance right before taking a flight, and then the plane crashes and he survives, and he comes back and she thought he was dead, and she's like, oh God. And of course he says, well, I'll leave the marriage, I'll give you the divorce you want, which she asks for in the beginning, if you help me get the insurance money. And we're just gonna play the part that I'm dead and he'll get a new identity. And I could see throughout the film how she knows what she's doing is wrong, but she's so desperate. And you see the struggle when she's dealing with the insurance companies and the lies and the secrets and stuff. And then, of course, the violence at the end when he hits her, when she hits him with the car. I was like, oh my God. And I don't know how you felt about this, but I certainly felt that he was definitely lying, that he was going to let her go. And I think the audience is meant to think he's lying too. And it's interesting to see her, because part of me thought, well, why don't you just go to the police? But then I can understand. I mean, it's quite empathetic. I can understand why she just thought, let me just get him out of my life. I'll get the money and go. Because it's like, if she goes to the cops, then what? Is he gonna, come out and kill her for going to the police? There's, you hear that women don't go to the police because the guy will say, I'll kill you if you tell anyone, and things like that. I don't know how you felt. That's why I felt through it.
Well, the statistic, going back to what you touched on, I think it is about domestic abuse. And I think that obviously they didn't really go for that, but it just drips with it. There is a statistic though, it takes 7 times for somebody to leave an abusive relationship. And man, we keep coming around back to narcissism. And I mean, it is an epidemic, but I'd say that like he's not going to, in the story, he claims that she's going to have everything. And then when she goes, I can't do this anymore. I can't live a life where you're threatening me or you're emotionally abusing me. And she's just exasperated. She's completely fed up. And I love Sophia in this because she's really exhausted. Yeah. And really drained. And you can see it in her performance and the way she moves. She's just like, she's too tight for her skin. And just really, and that's like a byproduct of the relationship itself, of marriage with Perkins. But yeah, I mean, the way that if you really pay attention to the dialogue, which is great, it's like really well written for Perkins. If he sees her just pull back a little bit and she gets like that exasperation come over her, then he'll come out with something that is very promising or, sweet and wholesome. And he's like this little boy though, that you just want to slap across the face and say, be gone, but he doesn't go away. He can't even die. But yeah, I mean, it's, that in itself, that's the psychological aspect of it. Like we spoke about how it kind of goes back to like Gaslight of there's this push-pull mechanism happening. And what I like about it in their dynamic is she's not going, okay, all right, I love you, when he feeds her that little breadcrumb. She's going, how do I like get on with my day and also my life with this person? And I mean, it is relatable. Something came to mind. I knew someone and I realized, oh my gosh, people like this actually exist, to where they physically drain you. Like you can actually, they're not just like they're a vortex. Like they actually physically drain you to the point where you feel your body just go, oh my God, okay. Like, am I still here? Just by you asking me a question, you have physically drained me. And yeah, so Perkins, he plays it really charming and sweet, and with all his lanky exterior and how he moves and stuff like that. And she plays it like the mom that needs to get her kid not to murder her.
Exactly. And he constantly, laughs at her pain or, belittles it or makes it out to be not a big deal about the way he's behaving or acting. What was really frightening was right before he gets on that plane at the beginning. And then, he's like, oh, he says something along the lines of, if I found out about another man, with his fingers goes bang, bang. And I'm like, oh my God, he did not just say that. It's so terrifying.
It is terrifying because you hear that stuff, and that's stuff that, like, when I say he's more psycho in this role than in Psycho itself, it's because this character is way more believable to me than Norman. And this character is like,
oh yeah.
I've met these characters, and aren't they lovely? But it's something that, like, they love to intimidate, they love to bully, they love to do all of that. And at the end of the day, it goes back around to how during this time in Perkins, his career, they really wanted him to be charming and upbeat and, you know, happy and filled with glee, and be able to, you know, keep his fans happy and swooning. But there is a complete and utter darkness that just runs throughout this movie, to where I've watched it during my multiple times, and I've gone, wow, like that's unsettling, really unsettling.
Yeah, certainly. One thing about that I didn't know about him was that I knew that he had moved to France. You know, the trial is actually is French production. This is an Italian French production. Same with Goodbye Again. You know, so he was working in France. But I had read that he apparently like became a French star. Like he was a star in France, which I didn't know. I didn't know that. Like, did he do movies speaking French, or was he always just the American? Yeah, because I don't know his career too well.
Apparently, I'm the expert.
Enlighten us.
No, he, after Psycho, he flew out to Europe because all the offers he was getting were for psychopaths.
Right.
He wasn't getting anything, and he made the active decision to go out to Europe, and he broke his contract with Paramount. So he was like, he didn't wait for it to be over. He saw the writing on the wall that I'm typecast, I'm done, I'm gonna go somewhere else. And he became known. I'm not just using Elvis Presley's name here, but he actually became known and coined as the Elvis Presley of Europe.
Oh, wow. See, yeah. I never knew that.
And he spent a decade there. So he worked with Brigitte Bardot. He worked with Sophia Loren twice, Ingrid Bergman in Goodbye Again. He made French albums. He did a bunch of stuff. There's this movie called Phaedra, and that was the first movie that he did. But yeah, I mean, he was more popular over there than he ever was after he came back to the States.
Yeah, because I'm just looking at his IMDb page, and right after Psycho, Goodbye Again.
Yeah.
Then there was another one. Then there was this 5 Miles to Midnight, The Trial, and then everything.
Idiot. Yes. That's with Bardot. Yeah, he really.
They're mostly French.
It's
really interesting until the 70s.
Yep.
Wow.
And he came back in the 70s, and that's when most of the roles dried up. A very famous manager or agent, I should say, Sue Mengers, became his agent when he came back to the States. And quickly, soon after, I would say Psycho 2 came around. So he had a good decade before Psycho 2, and then he was popped back into the spotlight. But
yeah, it's pretty unique. It's pretty interesting. I know that, he wasn't like Jane Fonda did similar things. Like she went to France as well. If they weren't liking what they were getting. They all
taste of that French New Wave.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Ingrid Bergman went to Italy. That was much earlier in the 40s. But I always find that fascinating when actors take those risks and jumps. One thing that was interesting, unique about this film was, I don't know how you felt about this, but the element of the plane crash was so odd to me. And at first I didn't think that worked, but then I thought, well, if you look at it from a certain angle, perhaps it does work, because they're more or less depicting the film as realistic, but it has the situation is surrealistic. It has these almost horror-like elements of this man who just is Freddy Krueger, who just, no matter what, he's gonna keep coming back, even when he's dead. So he takes out this flight insurance, and you see him board the plane, and there's a shot of him holding the good luck charm,
Yeah.
and it looks to me like he's hoping for this crash. I mean, that was just my impression. And then, of course, she finds out later that the no survivors, big plane crash. And so we, the audience, think he's dead. And then sure enough, he shows up, and she's like, what? And he looks at the newspaper and he smiles, it says no survivors. And he's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. So I don't know how much of this was there's no way he could have calculated that plan. But, again, it doesn't make sense. But in a dream, or in a nightmare, and something surrealistic, nothing makes sense. And so it's really the feelings of this guy who just like won't come back. Sorry, who keeps coming back, and it led to the horror elements of it, where particularly at the end, where even after she kills him and she's losing her mind, like she's not even making sense at the end, and she's convinced he's gonna come back. And they cut to there's a dissolve from a close up of her face to the swamp where she put the car, and it's almost like Psycho at the end. You feel like the car is just gonna come out, or his hand is gonna come out of the water or something. And I just thought that is such an interesting balance, because in more genre related films where it's like an obvious genre film, like a horror film like Psycho, we sort of accept that it's really out there and tongue-in-cheek, yet scary because of the genre that it's in. But here, there's no real one genre here. It's not a drama, it's not a horror film, it's not a surrealist film. It's just so odd. The whole thing, you cannot put it in a box.
Pots. It's this whole collective mix and a nice little cocktail to make your head spin. I mean, I can say though, drama, from one aspect, from my perspective, that just popped up in my head of her expecting him to come back, and
at the end, you mean?
That's drama right there. I mean, you can put that in a movie that just focuses on domestic abuse, and you go, I completely understand her thinking here, because it's like the song X's and O's. It's like they never want to leave you alone. And this guy, he's always around her, and he's like this little ghost that's always going to haunt. But then there's another aspect to it, which is like, okay, it's a psychological aspect, and which falls kind of into it, but it is her to where this marriage is completely, it's far past strained. It's all just manipulation. And I'm surprised that she's held down a job, that she's held down like a social circle. And then she starts to get a little bit of a love interest going on.
Yes. And I thought that worked well.
It does. It's funny because, of course, the love interest needs to come on board. But he also is, he's a wonderful character and a great device, because I liked in the story, as much as Perkins and Sophia, they're in this apartment and they're trying to keep him hidden. And when he's trying to hide, he's hiding from like all the neighbors and making sure nobody sees that he's alive. And he also sounds completely paranoid too. Like he's just paranoid, not wanting to, making jokes. Like if the little boy comes in, who's a neighbor, and he's like, "Do you got any Coke?" And he's like, "Yeah, we got Coke, we got heroin, we got whatever you need." And he's like hunched down and doesn't want anybody to see him. But that's one thing that I did find interesting, of how a lot of the story takes place in the apartment, and how she's going out doing stuff, coming back, he gets updates, what's going on with the insurance company, what's going on with this, what's going on with that. And yeah, I don't think it was calculated. I think that he just is that type of person who went finally.
He's like an opportunist.
Opportunist.
He sees the opportunity.
He's like that kind of guy to where he sees something that he can manipulate. And he'll go, all right, yeah, I could do something about that, even though it's so extreme and he's pulling his wife into it. It's so extreme that he literally flung outside an emergency door on a plane, and then people died. And then he came back with, you know, his leg all scraped up, and he said to his wife, hey, this is how this is going to go down. And if it doesn't work out, honey, you're going to go down with me. It's going to be glorious.
Exactly.
And yeah, it's
well, even
it's
I mean, the fact that it was just interesting to me that they cut to him on the plane with the good luck charm. Again, that's sort of open to interpretation, because it's like, I think without that shot of him sitting on the plane, like holding the charm, I mean, you can think maybe he's holding the charm hoping that his wife is not going to cheat on him. Not necessarily that he's hoping for a plane crash, right? It all depends on how you look at it.
I mean, I kind of like your perspective, because I don't think he's holding a charm just because he's going, I hope she doesn't cheat on me. I love her so much. The way he treats her, I think he's going like, give me something, because I'm going to go get a job or try to get a job, and I'm down on my luck. Give me something, like have this plane crash or do something. And
well, and also he was on his way to Casablanca in Morocco for, again, he's also lying about that, about a job opportunity. Well, he says it was for work, but what we later found out is that we don't know the details, but he got fired for something criminal he did, embezzlement or something, within his company. So again, was that some opportunity he snatched, just like this opportunity he's trying to snatch now? Another thing that was interesting, and you can never really believe anything he says, is that when she later slaps him, you know, she's Italian, he's American, he was a soldier. He met her, I imagine during well, this is the early 60s, so I don't know if it would have been World War II. I don't think so, but he, for whatever reason, because it feels like this is the 60s. So, but he met her in Italy, and he says, oh, you just married me because you saw some way to get out of where you lived, and because of anyone with a couple of bucks in their pocket. And she slaps him. But then at the end, when he gets the money from her, he says, he contradicts his point by saying, oh, I'm just some poor kid from, I forget the city. You know, so this guy is lying so often. He alienates himself. He's trying to alienate her. He is just manipulative. I mean, he's rotten to the core. And having this love, I mean, there's a couple of the secondary characters where there's the little boy, and then there's the love interest of Sophia Loren. What was interesting is, again, now if you take away the plane crash and the crime insurance fraud story, and if you took that away, and it was her living with this man who was abusive, and then she met this man who she was attracted to. Again, it's those feelings of, oh, I can't let my husband even know about you. If he even knows I'm talking to you, he's gonna kill me or hit me. And of course, that's why in this film you see that initially she was put off by him. He was the friend of her friend, and he sort of comes on strong at first. She's kind of like, whoa, and then he follows her. He's almost acting like Anthony Perkins is, and then as you get to know him, he seems like an okay guy. But it's interesting how she's drawn to him, but again, it's like, I can't, this can't go anywhere, because I could possibly be killed. Even at the end, after she kills him, she calls him first, this guy, and then she hangs up, because she's probably just had to process, how am I going to get away with this?
And it is like, more I'm hearing you and just going through it, it's like, wow, they really depicted a heightened, like abuse relationship movie, and where everything's heightened to an extreme. Wow, the difference is beyond me, because when I was little, I was going like, oof, this guy's crazy, but like, aren't they cute? But now it is
not so cute.
No, it's not cute
so
at
cute
all.
now.
It's
no,
not cute.
no. It's so deranged. The actor who was her love interest, the character's name was David Barnes. Gig Young was the actor. He was quite good. And I love the little boy who catches Perkins on the roof.
Yeah.
As he was hiding at a certain point, he goes up on the roof, and of course he lies about why he's there. He says he's like hiding from the mob and all this kind of stuff. And that other scene with the little boy on the roof, where the kid he you don't know if he's lying or not, or if he's kidding, and he says, "Oh, I told my friends about you." And then I thought Perkins was gonna kill him. I thought, oh God, because it's like, here we are on this roof.
That's a kid. It's a kid, and he's going so far as like they're both on the roof, and he's like, "Wait, I'm come back here, come over here." And it's like, whoa,
I thought something was gonna go down.
Yeah.
And I love the end, because even when she has killed Perkins, she's in the apartment, and again, it was like a horror film. The knock on the door, I was like, no, it's him. I thought for sure.
I thought it was too.
Unstoppable. It's him. He's back from the dead. And it was the little boy, and of course he tells, this is how the love interest of Sophia Loren finds out everything. David Barnes, the character, he now puts everything together about what's been going on, and it's so startling. I mean, that, and again, talking about Sophia Loren, that last scene and those utilizing those close-ups, and just she looks like she's
been through war,
breaking down, and is not even making sense because of what she's gone through. I particularly like the fact that she didn't care about the money at all. Like you think like, okay, she killed this guy, and then she drops the money, and you see the cops chasing her, and you think, oh no, and then they're like, oh yeah, you dropped this bag, and she's like, yeah, thanks. But she like, this wasn't about money, right? This was about giving this guy the money and him going.
It's about sanity, right?
Yeah,
it's about your sanity. And when you're in moments like that, and you're striving to just, you're going through the motions, which she did a fantastic job of, performing, but you also are just like point A to point B. Like, let me try to, you're not really focused on, yes, I got to get this, I got to get that. And my money, I dropped it. She was wonderful in this role.
She
was so wonderful.
So good.
In that she really held her own in making sure that we felt this the psychological toll as the movie goes on.
Absolutely.
It increases.
Absolutely.
And you start to see it wear on her more and more and more. In the beginning, she's standing up, and she's a little bit more assertive when she feels she needs to be. She's still submissive. And considering the fact that she's in a marriage like that, she feels she needs to. But it's her, and then as time goes on and the psychological abuse, telling her, go here, go there, and calling her, not leaving her alone. This is a man she wants to leave. She wants to be, she does not want him around. The fact that, we're getting into like the psychological aspect. I remember somebody telling me when we're talking about the topic, somebody telling me that when somebody has been in an abusive relationship and they go no contact and they actually get out, successfully. But when the abuser comes back in, they go to square one in their healing process. And that makes sense because you're seeing your abuser once again, and no contact creates that distance. And this woman, she's like, he's not leaving her alone while laughing about the fact that he needs a cigarette and, go get me one. But I'm going on one of my famous tangents. So yeah, I mean, it's like it did escalate. And at the end, of course, you start to see that there is no bright, shining road ahead of her. If anything,
Right.
That road is very, very dark, and it has her ex-husband or her husband lying on it somewhere.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say, the title was always so interesting to me. And excuse me, 'tis the season.
Well, and he also says that to her, right? Like when he gets into the car at the end, and she's like, "Okay, I got your money," and he's like, "No, we're going. I'm not gonna let you go." And then he says, "Hey, 5 miles to midnight."
5 miles to midnight. Yeah. And
yeah.
it is an interesting title.
And that was his doom.
Yeah,
that was the end of
definitely.
him.
It's like, what does that mean, though? 5 miles to midnight, because it's an actual sign. They're driving, and there's an actual sign that says midnight or something like that. And he's like, 5 miles to midnight, and it's like it's a very, that's where the surrealist aspect kind of came in for me, where I'm like, 5 miles to midnight. That's such an interesting title.
It really is. Yeah. I thought it meant, basically at the end of the 5 miles, one of them or both of them is dead.
Oh, you know what? You're smarter than me, so it makes sense.
Because I thought that long road where there's no one around, 5 miles, and it was funny because once he got in the car and he said that to her after seeing this woman take a toll, I did have a thought like, oh my God, she's gonna kill him. But then I didn't really think that she would. And what's also,
she doesn't just kill him, she runs him over multiple times.
Runs him over with the car a few times. And what's interesting is that, because we all have violence in us and can turn to crime in really desperate situations, I believe. And here, I mean, we're not in touch with those feelings unless we're, there's something wrong with us, or we're in a situation like her. And he really brings
Robert, are you okay?
I'm like, where am I going with this? But he really brings that out of her. Like he brings the violence out of her. He brings, like, on paper, she's a murderer and a criminal now. But you don't blame her. At least I didn't. You don't blame her for it. You're totally empathetic towards her. I mean, you'd have to be a stone not to understand.
Oh yeah.
Not to understand why she's doing what she's doing. But I find that so interesting with someone who, from what we know about her in this film, is basically a good, decent human being. And it's like, how did this happen? And it kind of goes to the marriage part of it too, because even her friend at the beginning says, well, why'd you marry him? And it's like, it's like anything else. Like, I loved him at first, and she doesn't really go into it, but I got the impression it's like anything else. You fall in love, but then you live with them, and your love either grows or it gets ugly, or whatever, it gets stale. In their case, she now married him, and then this monster came out, and it's like, what do you do? And you lied, and you got the impression that she lied to herself. Well, maybe tried to justify it until the violence and the monster in him grew to such an extent where she had to get out, and then it led to the murder. I mean, it's so dark and fascinating to me, how these things happen,
What do you think the movie is about, in terms of, if you were to, and you've asked me this question in the past, use a personalized interpretation?
Like,
How
you
would
mean
you personalize it, and what do you take away from it? How would you personalize it? What
like
would
if I
be
was to
your,
play it? You mean like if I was
if you,
playing it?
no, just like overall, what's Robert's personalized interpretation of what he takes away from it? Doesn't have to be what it exactly is, but your personalized interpretation, what you feel it's about to you.
Oh, well, certainly everything we've been saying. I mean, I certainly think it's all about, this whole film is what is domestic abuse like. I mean, I think what they and the way in which they communicated it wasn't from the structure of the plot of the story from a way that is realistic. It's that the feelings are realistic
Yeah.
and true, but this really heightened extreme. And I'm not surprised a Hitchcock writer, well, he wrote the Saboteur. Not that he wrote all his script, but Hitchcock's films are like that, are very much like that. I mean, this is probably more serious than the issues he often tackled. But if you look at something like Vertigo, which is like about a man who loses a woman not once but twice, and further into the psychology of this man, but the story is so silly, it's like ridiculous, but the feelings of it are so raw, and you buy into it even though it's not plausible. And this is like this too. It's like the story is like it's so out there, it's insane, but yet the feelings of this violence and abuse are so visceral. So that's what I really took from it.
No, I mean, I got chills, and that's not my temperature, or my fever. You said it perfectly. It can be such a wacky, movie, but the feelings of it are really, they are strong in big doses. But you said that perfectly. I would sum that up for all movies like this that are wacky, that are a little bit broader. And
it's hard to pull
plot.
off. I feel.
Yes, the emotions are visceral, and the emotions are strong, and they're there. And if they're relatable or if they're universal, then let the rest just be darned.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty remarkable to me. I also wanted to mention the cinematography by Henri Alecan, because here we are in Paris, the city of love, and it shot almost in a noir-like fashion. I mean, it's often indoors. When we're outside, it's raining, it's wet, it's damp, or it's in the evening.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah, there's no light. Everything is just bleak. And I mean, so when I was Googling it, some people feel that this would perhaps be considered a neo-noir. I didn't really see it in a noir sense. I saw it really from everything we're describing in this surrealist horror film.
I saw that more. What you saw, it's there. The cinematography is really lush. I do like how they utilize like indoors, and also going back to like the Hitchcock feel of it all. You have Rear Window, and that in 5 Miles to Midnight, you have these apartment buildings that are circular, and just like Rear Window, it's all circular, and you look across, you see somebody right there. That kind of, those settings are perfect. You're running into so many people with somebody who's supposedly dead. But there's the cinematography, the direction. The director is Anatole Litvak, right?
Yeah, who also did Goodbye Again.
Yeah, he did Goodbye Again. Yeah,
which is a very different film than this. It's both with Perkins. That is a very real, and I love that movie. It's a realistic look at in the human relationships. I mean, but this is about human. It's a reality domestic abuse, but done in this really far out way. I should really actively look at Anatole's movies, because
He
this
did
is
Anastasia.
yeah, I
with
haven't seen
Ingrid.
that. I haven't seen that.
He did that.
You got 42 credits,
Oh my
and
gosh.
I haven't.
Nothing I
Oh,
touched.
he did Sorry Wrong Number, which is a great noir. I actually yeah, really, really good. I reviewed that in the last few months. Oh, City for Conquest, James Cagney. I've seen that. That's really, really good. Yeah, but a lot of his films I haven't seen. I'm really gonna have to take a deep dive into his work. Was there anything else you wanted to mention?
No, it's one of those movies with Perkins and Sophia. They were best of friends.
Like, I read that. Huge.
Yeah, they were really, really good friends, super close. And I remember going to AFI, which is a film festival, and also American Film Institute here in Los Angeles. I went to the film festival one year, and Sophia Loren was actually being honored by the AFI. And, you know, I remember sitting in, I was going to call it the Kodak Theater, but it's the Dolby Theater. Film preservation is still very much in me, apparently. But I remember sitting in the theater and with her there, and they played a whole intro. And I was surprised, but they showed clips of her and Anthony Perkins. They worked together.
Or the other one they did.
Yeah, they worked together in this movie, which is based off a play called Desire in the Elms.
Right.
And so they showed that. It was the last one too. The last clip that they showed out of the whole montage. But yeah, she is actually someone who knew that he was gay, and that she knew in a way that allowed him the space to be able to have fun. And Europe did that as well. So they were obviously a lot more free in their expression. It's a really, really good movie.
Yeah, I really liked it. I'm sure I'll revisit it. So this was a great one to explore in the Perkins filmography. I always ask everybody, even returning guests, to plug their social media outlets. I know I've asked you before, but for the people who are finding us for the first time, where can they follow you to see what you're working on?
Okay. So Instagram is private, but you are more than welcome to send a follow. That's at Janae_Ballot, I believe. I rarely use social media anymore. It is liberating. People try it. But you can go to Janae.
I love social media.
I know he's great. Like, he needs to be. I personally,
Yeah, no, I know. I totally get it. I totally get it. Sorry, go ahead.
JanaeRachelBallot.com. That's my website. That's where you'll see any updates. And if you really want to get to know me, then no.
That's a tough one.
But I'm working on a bunch of great things. Actually, I love to share one thing. So this is the first time I will be talking about this. I'm directing a short that's coming up in February on the 14th and 15th. I'm directing a short that first time I did not write it. And I made the decision to reach out to a great friend and brilliant writer. His name is Sahil Raghavan. And I started talking to him about, okay, so your writing has such a unique, distinct voice. I want to do something. And he sent me these 2 scenes. And these 2 scenes are about a married couple who are getting ready for bed. And the husband is a writer. And the wife, she read his latest pages. And she believes that he is having an affair based off of those pages. And he wrote one dramatic scene, and then he wrote one comedic scene. And it was brilliant because what he did and what we did through tweaking and collaborating in the script phase, he condensed both of them together to where it's like this meta loop. And it all takes place in the bed. It's the most interesting, constrained sandbox to play in. And yet both of them contrast drastically, like dramatic and then comedic. But they're the same characters. And it goes all back around. But yeah, I'm doing that. I mean, gosh, I'm doing I'm doing another project that I'm very, very excited about. I haven't felt this excited since actually managed. And this is something I wrote. And that's called Flowers, Weeds, and Seeds. And it's a story about addiction and overcoming addiction in the most absurd way. And it's with a tap dancer as well. So
right.
It is all over the place. But yeah, I mean, you guys can see it on the website or just get to know me. It's easier.
Great. Fantastic. Well, I look forward to seeing what you got coming out. And thanks so much again for joining me for your time. Look forward to the next one.
Yeah, I know. We'll set it up.
Yeah.
Thank you. Robert's the best.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching and or listening. If you are currently listening to this on the audio version of my YouTube channel and you've run out of episodes to listen to, head over to the YouTube channel where every single episode that I have ever recorded can be found. Please go to youtube.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you're interested in supporting me over on Patreon, head over to the link patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies for full details. And lastly, if this is your first time here on my YouTube channel, please consider subscribing by pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the movies logo. You will see it floating above my head in the top left corner to your top left in just a second. Just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new episodes or when I go live. Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in the next episode.